Hi, I just wanted to tell you all, thank you so much for coming, and also thank you for those of you that zoomed in tonight. I'm Anna Cavallari, I'm the chair of the Hood River Valley Parks and Rec District Board, and I'm here with my fellow board members, and we just want to, first of all, really thank you for coming tonight and participating tonight. Before we dive in, we'll just start out with introductions real quick, if that sounds good, just so we all know. I think most of us were here a couple of years ago. But that next slide.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah. Changing the way. When I did that, I couldn't see anybody that was in the call. I'm not just representing.
We're not in our usual pool room, so bear with us during our time. Mark is amazing and does absolutely everything, including IT. So.
And our pool room sounds a lot more fun than it actually is. It's actually just a little sweaty room with the pixels.
The background noise.
Not like.
Well, I mean,
What's with the scruff going on? No.
I think we're waiting for the slide.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
The bald heads usually dead giveaway.
No. Getting there, getting there. All right. Yep. So there we were in August of 2019. That's the last time most of us were here in this room, and I have to give credit to Mark Miller. I think we were at a city council meeting last fall, and he said, we got to get the band back together. So it was so nice to get the band back together. And then I also want to thank Commissioner Babbitt, Commissioner Joplin, and Mayor McBride. You guys encouraged us to reconvene and discuss things as well. So as we get into introductions, if we just go around the table real quickly and say name, agency, and last time we were all here, we talked about our favorite park. Now I want to hear about the park you most want to visit. So go ahead, Mike, you can kick us off.
Mike McCarthy, Hood Parks District Board, park I most want to visit, Golden Eagle Park
The pump track.
with my grandkids. Tim Coonahan, I'm with the Hood River City Council. I'm gonna have to go with Denali.
Katie Pride, Hood River City Mayor. That's a hard one. Well, it's not a park, but it's a swimming pool. And that's my favorite, so I have to say swimming pool.
Mike Fox, Hood River, Port Commission, and probably Glacier. Mike Oates, Chair of Hood River County.
Let's start with Hood River County, and with Mike Glacier, Politico.
My name is Rich Polkinghorn. I'm with the school district. And I don't know, all those national parks sound good, but I wind up at Golden Eagle Park a lot with my 5-year-old riding on the pump track.
I'm Suzanne Cross, Parks and Rec. Oh, stop, there's so many. I guess I would also have to say Golden Eagle, because I am there quite frequently. But if we're really being honest, it's somewhere in some tropical island somewhere that I don't know of just yet.
My name is Nan Dodeboom, and I'm on the Parks and Rec Board. And I'm just gonna stick with my park, which some of you know is Odell Community Park. That's my park.
Mark Hickok, Hood River Valley Parks and Recreation District, and I'm gonna go with Yosemite.
Marcy, you want to go on before we jump to the folks online?
Marcy Wiley, Hood River Valley Parks and Rec, and I'm gonna just go with Mark because I also have a.
I'm trying to get away from you.
We can go together.
All right.
Megan, do you want to jump in? Oh, you're on mute.
Megan Thomas, on mute.
I can't really hear you all, but I think you said my name.
Yeah.
So go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization and, or agency and the park you most want to visit.
Okay, Megan Saunders, Hood River City Council, Yellowstone National Park.
Right.
And can you all speak up or get more microphones? I can't hear anything.
Sure, we will.
It seems like that one isn't connected, Mark.
That one over there.
I can hear,
You can hear? Yeah.
I can hear, you might put it close to the since she's in.
Michael, are you on the line with us still? Michael McElway?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I am. Michael McKelwey, Port of Hood River. I'd have to throw out Man Park in West Hood River, just down the street, and wonderful for children.
That is a good one. How about Arthur? Oh, you might be on mute, Arthur. Or did we lose Arthur?
We lost Arthur.
Oh,
He's no longer on the list.
Jeff, would you like to jump in?
Jeff is allowed to talk.
He's an attendee, not a friend.
Oh, sorry.
Arthur just texted me, Gorch has
Oh, of course.
dropped him and he'll rejoin when he can.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and move forward. If I have missed anyone, I apologize. You're welcome to jump in and introduce yourself later if you like. The next thing I just wanted to talk to you all about is primarily the purpose that we're here. And it comes down to, each of your entities has similar issues of, we all provide these parks and trails and recreational amenities, and the funding available to pay for them they're not money makers is the issue. I mean, the majority of them do not generate revenue, but they take a lot for maintenance. And I was telling Commissioner Fox earlier, kind of the brief history of Parks and Rec District is, our pool was built in the 1940s as a World War II memorial, and the city ran it for years and years until they couldn't. And that's when Mike Shind and that whole crew came together in the 90s and said, hey, let's form a parks district, a special district to take care of the pool. And when the district was formed, we formed at a permanent tax rate of 32 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And since the 90s, we've operated the pool on that, but we've also grown to acquire and develop parks and trails, and being able to maintain and continue to develop these amenities for our community as the community has grown has been really challenging. There's grants, there's other resources, but primarily our income comes from this 32 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. So when I started on the board about 5 years ago, we were faced with the issue of our dilapidated pool. It's falling apart. It is such a resource to this community. We live on the water. It's important for all of our citizens to know how to swim, and our kids to learn how to swim. It provides, athletic opportunities for our water polo teams and our swim teams. We've got masters. It's a really important part of our community. And if it closes down, that would be tragic. I really think it would be horrible. So we've been working on how do we replace the pool. And the reality is not everyone in our community uses the pool. So, to go out to our constituency and ask them to contribute towards paying for a new pool, not everyone's going to support that because they don't use it, even if it is a valuable asset to the community. So we were like, what else, in the community outreach that we've done for the past 5 years, we've asked folks, what would you support? And the overwhelming feedback that we got was primarily trails. Our community wants to see connectivity and parks, outdoor parks, and ball fields was one. We have a lot of these resources, and they're right now operated and maintained by each of our agencies kind of, piecemeal, as opposed to, a consolidated maintenance of it. And I've heard Mark say a million times, like, you know, when we have people that go to the park, if it's Man Park by Michael's house, or if it's, you know, Golden Eagle, or if it's the waterfront park, nobody cares who's operating that park. They just want to know that it's there. They want to know that it's clean. They want to know that there's trash cans there. And they want to be able to go and visit it, but they don't really, it's not important to them which of our agencies is operating it. So one of the solutions that our board has come up with to be able to create more revenue so that we can help pay for the pool and continue to, you know, grow our amenities. Like we purchased the Westside Park property, the Blackman Skakel property last year. Is one way that we have to fix this, to get more money, is to go out and reform our district. It would be a joint linked resolution to dissolve and reform our district at a higher permanent tax rate. And we came to the city last fall and got approval for that, to take it to the voters. We came to the county and we were asked to kind of pump the brakes a little bit because the county is concerned about compression. And we understand that, but we also want to be respectful. And I mentioned this to Mayor McBride when we had an opportunity to talk. You know, Parks and Rec is our business. That's what we do. The school district has a million other things that you're trying to do. The city, the county, the port, you guys have other issues to deal with, but Parks and Rec is our business. So again, I'm grateful to all of you for coming here this evening to help us with this. But we also wanted to kind of come up with some solutions of different options on how we can increase our funding, run it by you guys, see if we can get some support, but then also say, these are just our ideas. Like, really, if we're going to be successful, we need the support of each of your entities. And, you know, we want to do this collaboratively. So we thought we would present our ideas to you all, and then, you know, solicit feedback from you, and then see if there's anything we're missing. Is there any ideas that you guys can come up with that we just haven't thought of? So that's kind of where we are. Let's see. I guess one of the big things that we've done in the past is, you know, again, we were all here in 2019. One of the first steps we wanted to do was to get a master plan in place. And that way we would all be on the same page, at least, like we all understand what our goals and priorities are. And these were out of our Parks Master Plan. These were the priorities that we came away with. And the number one is rebuilding the aquatic center and rebuilding the pool. The second one is developing a sustainable long-term operations for funding, and that's a priority. Extend and connect the trails, acquire land in the west side of Hood River for a park, and partner with other agencies to find a more efficient service delivery. You know, some examples of the things that we have accomplished so far. We're working on building this Indian Creek Southside Connector Trail. There's always talks about how we're going to work on the Campbell property. That's been something we've been working on for years. It's just that little chunk of Indian Creek Trail that we're missing. Then we acquired the 20-acre Fairview property, and while we have it, even with the resources, you know, the resources we have today, even if we had the money to develop that park today, we wouldn't have the money to maintain a 20-acre park. And that's, you know, we're grateful that we had an opportunity to get that land, because it's going to be an amazing community park someday, but it's going to take a while. And then a good example of partnering with other agencies is working with the school district to have community ed, now community rec, part of our Parks and Recreation programming. We're really going to enhance that. And I want to say thank you to the school district. We're really excited about that, as is the entire community. I think we're getting a lot of positive feedback about that. Okay, so one of the things that I just wanted you guys to see what we have done so far, since at least in the 5 years that we have, you know, that I've been working on this and we've been working on this. You know, going out and asking our constituents, what is it that is a priority to you? And I have to be honest, if you guys came back tonight and said, well, let's go out and take a survey, I might scream because we've done surveys, we've asked people, and we are constantly, engaging our community. We engage the Latino community every opportunity we get. We try to have our surveys in, both Spanish and English. Our entire community is really, really important to us, and getting their feedback is a priority. And we have gone out of our way to do that. We always welcome feedback, whether it's through a survey or not, or any other way. But these are the things that we've done to try to make sure that our constituency is that we're representing them accurately. Okay, so here's what we've come up with so far as a board. And I encourage my fellow board members to please jump in if I misstate anything or forget anything. Our options are, we'll start with option A, the general obligation bond. This is one thing that we considered. I have to read it to you all. Another thing was the local option levy. Reforming the district was our third option, or sales tax was one that Commissioners Joplin and Babbitts had raised to us in February. And it's, these are options we considered. The option that we originally went with after we considered these all was the purple option, reforming the district. And our thought was, and what was important to me, was if we dissolved and reformed the district at a higher rate that we could borrow against to fund the development that we wanted to do, then we could pay that off and have the money already in place to maintain and operate the new amenities that the capital improvements that we build. And why that was such a important thing to me was because I don't want to continue to go back to our constituency, go back to the voters and ask them for more money. I don't want to nickel and dime them. And in my opinion, and from the feedback that I've received from my neighbors and the people I've talked to, the people in our community, is that a bond, something like that, it is a permanent tax. Like it's kind of handcuffing to the voters to like, oh, now we've got this bond in place, we've built this capital improvement, and if you don't vote for it again, then we're going to have to close it down. And it's kind of holding the voters hostage, and it just doesn't seem fair.
I think that's a local option.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's a local option. Thank you. So I don't really want to do that, but the concerns that we're hearing is that we want to be cognizant of the tax rates and compression, and we want to be respectful of that. So if that's not going to be the option that our community partners these other agencies are going to support, then what are other options? Another reason why we didn't love some of these other options is, well, a sales tax, realistically, it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to pass in our community. I don't see that flying. It's been tried. I know that there has been a success in Cannon Beach recently. I believe that was by their city, and it was to fund the fire department. But I don't know that that's something that is really a viable option for us. Another suggestion was maybe dissolve and reform the district at a lower rate than what we initially proposed, and then also go out for a bond or a levy. And again, that's kind of, I feel like we're just continuing to ask our voters for things. And the concern is if one thing passes and another doesn't, we're kind of, we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot there too.
Anna, if I can
Yes.
interrupt. And Anna said, though, that on a general obligation bond, the point was that you would build a capital improvement, pay the bond off, and then there would be no operating money. And that's what you said. I think Mark said you were talking about the general or the local option.
Which you mentioned having to come back each
Yes.
year, every 5 years. That's not the general obligation bond. That was with.
No, it
Yeah.
terminates, and then
Yeah.
here you have this facility.
Yeah.
And no money to operate it. And then you hold the people hostage that we can't operate your facility until we get past the levy. And that was what she was saying we were
Yeah.
maybe trying to avoid. But the one issue is that we don't want to have to go out over and over again, as many of you know, is a difficult thing. And the school boards not their favorite thing to do, I don't think, the school district.
I mean, the point is we need both.
Yeah,
We
we all
need the
do.
capital and we need the operating.
Yes.
We can't really. We could do just the operating, but then the pool's gonna close.
Well, and
Pool's failing.
the other concern that I have is, I know that on the horizon is the West Side District. And I understand about, urban renewal district. I know the benefits of that, but it also hinders the pool's ability to, or the Parks and Rec District's ability to, it puts a cap on the amount of revenue that we'll be generating, and at the same time increases the amount of constituents that we'll have in our community. So the demand for, parks, recreation, pool, all these things is going to increase as our community grows. And with a large urban renewal district, we're for 30 years or how many years the district's going to be in place, the amount of money we have coming to us is going to be capped, and that's challenging. That's, I believe.
So I
Yes,
just want to talk about that just for a minute.
Please.
So the urban renewal district, you would get the same amount you're getting now, plus, you're allowed a 3% raise. If it's a new house that's being built, then whatever it comes on the tax rolls out, that's what it is, and that would be new. And then when it's done, you get all the new revenue. What the city's kind of afraid of right at this point, or one of concern, and one of the reasons we're thinking about doing the urban renewal district, is that nothing's happening in any kind of fast fashion out there because there's no infrastructure. And to do any kind of larger kind of subdivisions and developments, we need help. I mean, developers need help. They need to put some parks in, they need streets, they need sewer, they need water, and nothing's going to happen out there, which will add to your tax base or our tax base if we don't give it a jump start. And that's what the urban renewal is for, is to give it a jump start so that eventually all of us, when it comes back on the rolls, there'll be much more funding. So, I mean, it'll freeze the rate it is today, but what we're afraid of is not hardly any development is going to happen if we don't do it. And then you won't get any more money that way either. So I just wanted to kind of talk about.
thank you.
that.
No, I appreciate that. That does help for some context for sure. Yeah, so here's kind of what we're thinking, or the things that we've considered. What's our next slide, Mark? And it's not super visible, but in order to kind of, we've got a copy of that slide over here to just kind of reference back to. Okay, so we'll kind of go through each of that's the quick overview here. We'll kind of go through each one. Scenario A, dissolve the park district, reform the park districts. This was the one that we, and have a capital bond in the same election. This was one of the things we talked about. Pros and cons are listed for you here. The biggest con I see is that, asking folks to pass all three, it just seems like, people that are intimately familiar with the issue might and want to support this might vote for all three, but people who don't know all the background, they'll say, oh, I'll vote yes on this one and no on that one. And if we don't have, if we have the reformed parks district at the higher rate, but the capital bond fails, we're kind of in trouble. So also it has to be fast tracked because we don't have a lot of time to get onto the ballot for November. There's some steps that go with that. Option B, the local option levy and the capital bond. Pros, it might be easier than redistricting, a later timeline, but the cons are both must pass and they may compete against each other, as I just mentioned. And we have to pass the operations levy every 5 years or the parks and pool will be closed or limited. That was what Mike was talking about.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
So on the capital bond, which sounds like most of it would be going to a new pool,
Yes.
how are you gonna pay for that? How are you gonna pay the bond off?
So
The capital bond gives you the ability to levy a certain tax rate to then pay the bond back. So it would be something like 50 cents per thousand, and then that dollar amount that's coming in pays the bond payments.
And how wide is that? Is that just Hood River or River County?
It would be the full Parks District, which is the whole county minus the city of Cascade Locks.
Anna and Mark, would you be able to repeat questions from folks in the back of the room? I can't hear them.
Absolutely, yeah, that was, Commissioner Fox was asking how the Parks District would repay a capital bond.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so scenario C, we'll move on to C. Capital bond first, then a levy or redistricting. What does M&O mean?
Maintenance and operation.
Oh, maintenance and operation, thank you. Maintenance and operation. Pros, only asking for one thing at a time, could get started on a new aquatic center and land acquisition quickly. And the cons are voters may be confused when the second ballot measure comes out, like, did we just vote for this? And also, we may have new pool parks and not have funding to open and operate or maintain them. That's a concern. So option D, levy or redistricting first to cover maintenance and operation, and then capital bond in a separate election. And then only asking for one thing at a time is a pro, get system caught up and ready for new infrastructure as is developed, but the cons are, again, might be confusing to the voters, like, didn't I just vote for this? Okay,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
So if you did a capital bond and you built a new pool, how short would you be on the operations with your current tax base?
Oh,
Maybe we
hold
wanna
on,
repeat the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna repeat the question for our Zoomers. Commissioner Perkins asked if we were to pass a capital bond to pay for the pool, how short would we be in our operating funds on our current tax rate? Is that right? Which is the 32 cents per $1,000.
It kind of depends on what kind of pool we build. If we knew that we weren't going to get a larger tax rate and we knew that we're stuck with this tax rate, then we would probably just rebuild the pool that we have. If we want to build the pool that the community has been saying that they want, one that has multiple floors, more of a community center feel, and has lots of different amenities, then it will be receiving more revenue. So there's some calculations there where we can be making some more money on it. But we would definitely need more money to run it. We would either have to cut back on our parks maintenance and things that we do there, with either divesting of some of our parks and trails to focus on the pool, or find some sort of another funding source to do it. Right now, our operation rate is 34 cents per thousand, and we had calculated that in order to grow into the future and operate a new pool at the level that we want to build it, it's somewhere in the 70 cents per thousand. So almost double what the operation rate is right now, and then the bond on top of that, which is another probably 60 cents or so in there. And so maybe 70 cents. Altogether, the total between these would equal around $1.27 or maybe $1.35, somewhere in there, in order for us to basically set ourselves up for the future and operate what we're doing right now. But that doesn't factor in anything from anyone else, the board or the city or anything else. That's just what the Parks District is managing and projects to manage.
Mark, did I have that wrong? Are we at 34 cents or 32 cents?
34.
Okay, I apologize. I kept saying 32 cents.
It feels like 32.
Yeah.
The other thing is that initial rate was only really for a pool district.
Yeah.
And we're now a parks district with trails and parks and at the same rate. So it's pretty thin.
And soon to be a recreation district.
Yeah, it's pretty thin.
Well, we understand the thin with funding was set 30
Thank
years ago.
Commissioner Oates, did you have something you wanted to answer?
Yeah, question. At 34 cents, you're now operating the pool, so I assume you can operate the pool. If you went out for the model levy and rebuilt the pool and not the other amenities, I would assume the new pool would be a lot more efficient. A lot more economic to operate. Could you still operate at the 34 cent rate for a while? But I understand what Mike's saying. You really don't have the money to operate all this stuff. But if you started with bond and just replaced the pool and got it efficient, and got that's That should be your number one goal right now, because you need a pool.
Mm.
We need a pool. River County needs a pool. We need the kids to know how to swim. When you talked about when it went in and it was a warm oil, one of the primary reasons they put that in is because they lost kids. And they were swimming down the river, and it's very dangerous down the river. My folks told me about that. Well, my folks grew up. So we need a pool. So I think that should be top priority. And then look at the other option of down the road, a year or two, trying to come up with changing your rates so that you can come in and cover the other things that we're doing, which, you know, I think public will support them. They probably don't want to support everything at once.
So let me kind of second what Mike said, on having a new pool, instead of having a pool and an activity center, strip it back down to just the pool. And then 3 or 4 or 5 years later, phase 2, take a good look at adding a structure to it, but design it where you can add to it. That helps your cash flow and gives some buy-in from the community.
So we've certainly, and I don't know if you guys on the Zoom call have heard this, I'm going to summarize. Commissioner Oates was suggesting just going for the bond to rebuild the pool as a priority because it is a necessary amenity in our community. And Commissioner Fox seconded that and said that, you know, maybe down the road after just a pool is built, you can go out for additional funding options to add on to the new structure. And I would like to say that one of the things that we looked at as in a pool steering committee that started in 2017 was any additions or revisions that we make to the existing pool or the pool house, it's not ADA compliant. We're going to have to go in and do a lot of changes anyway. And with the cost of materials increasing as it is likely most economical and practical to make all changes currently. But it is something I definitely appreciate the
I
thought.
could argue with you on that one a little bit. I think you can build a minimal structure now, design it where it can be added on to. And you're not gonna cost a whole bunch of money doing that. You're just gonna defer some cost. The other thing this does for you, at least the way I see it, I thought I heard you guys say that the community, the general community wasn't real high on having a pool. They see the need for the pool, they get it. What they really want is trails and parks. Okay, so what you're telling people is, no, you're kind of wrong, we're gonna build a pool. Okay, so however you do this, you're gonna have to be real careful how you present this, that, yeah, we need a pool for safety, and I agree, but we're gonna do a minimal one, and we'll set ourselves up that we can still take care of everything we've got. When I heard you say, well, we can build a pool, but now we're not gonna be able to take care of our trails, I'm going, these guys aren't listening to what they just said, what the community wants.
Well, we're listening. We're just trying to figure out how to split that baby. That's the hard part.
Let me ask though, when we did our surveys, the pool was not the top item?
It was the type of.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the top item.
Right.
Yeah,
The
so
pool
we're
is
having fun.
I'm not sure, yeah, that it came out real clearly when she explained it, but the pool was one and then trails and then
Yeah.
parks,
Yeah.
that order.
Yeah.
But pool was still number one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I appreciate
We weren't
that.
really clear.
The issue that I would have is that if you go out and you get a bunch of money for a pool, and at the same time you say, well, thanks very much, but I can't do my trails, then I'm going, somebody's not looking at the big picture.
Well, that's why the ask has to be big enough to appeal to everyone and to cover the pool, the trails, and development and acquisition of parks. Marcy, can I ask, one of the things, like scenarios, options E through whatever, I'd like, if we could just go ahead and write up there, I'm gonna say option E is Commissioner Oates's suggestion of capital, just the capital bond. And then maybe option F is Commissioner Fox's suggestion of just the capital bond, develop the pool, and then maybe develop it to the point where it can be added on later, but have enough in the ask to also cover
Do
maintenance of trails and parks.
a good pool, but not Mercedes.
So,
Phase two could be adding the Mercedes to it, but when you ask, make sure that you can still support your other resources or other land that you've got.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to, I want to hear other thoughts and ideas, and I know that a priority for the county, actually the port and the city is, when we came to the county and the city and presented this, we were asked with, I think it was you, City Councilman Cunahan, that was, do we have enough money in our ask to cover taking over management of city parks or county parks or port parks? And the answer is no. But I think it's, one of the things that we've talked about when we talked about the Parks Master Plan was consolidation. So in these, ideas, these other options and scenarios, kind of one of the things we want to hear from you all is that something that you want to do? Do you have ideas on how we can incorporate this? This is totally intended to be a conversation. We just wanted to say, we've done our homework, we've thought this through, but we want to know what your thoughts are too. So what do you guys think?
So I'll stick my neck right out here and get it. Might as well. So I just think that we should have a conversation about consolidation. And, we know about how much the city pays for parks and maintenance of the parks and salaries and equipment and all that. And personally, and this is not, we haven't had a vote, we haven't talked about it as a council, this is just my individual thoughts on it, is I would be for giving whatever that dollar amount is, maybe it's 2 cents per thousand, I don't know what it is, 1 cent, I have no idea. But and that should go to the Parks and Rec District, and you guys should have all the parks. You guys buy the land for the parks, you get the SDCs. I mean, they're your SDCs already. And you do all of it. You've got the master plan, your Parks and Rec, that's all you do. It's a sideline for us. So, I mean, I would consider looking at that.
I'm curious if that means like change in ownership, or if it just means like lease and we operate it. What is, I mean,
I could go either way.
those are the weeds. Those are kind
That's
of
the weeds,
Yeah.
I think that's just for the discussion, whether you guys own them, took care of them, we own them, you managed them and took care of all of them. But I know that if you managed them and took care of all of them, you need more money to do that. So you should at least have the amount we're paying to do that.
That's that operating dollars problem we have, that we just, with the inventory that we have and all the programs that we have, that we can't really do much more. We can't really develop the West Side Park or, do any new development or expand our inventory until we get some more operating dollars.
So how could we use this idea of yours, consolidation, to help us to move to also getting something passed? I mean, it seems like it makes sense. If we go to the voters and say we're going to consolidate some of this stuff, and that'll give us efficiencies, but also we have to pass something. How do we do that in a way?
I don't know, because I think this consolidation idea is something that would take a lot more discussion, a lot more time. I don't think it's on the same time frame as this November personally.
Yeah.
I just think it's a way bigger idea than that.
I think it's
If
a
you
great
guys can go
idea,
out for
though.
November.
I would think, I kind of like the initial thought of this consolidation. If you took the budgets from the 3 entities now, and you put those budgets together and all of the services that they provide today, and let's say the budget is $100, and we add them all together. Each one of us has overhead supporting each of those 3 entities. If we consolidate this, it goes to one. So theoretically, for the public, it's a better deal for the public. They get the same service instead of $100, maybe it's 97. Okay, so that extra $3 could be used for something new. But it shows the public that we've looked at it, we've tried to consolidate, we're squeezing the buck as much as we can. But even with that, we need some more. But it shows the public you tried.
Some of the issues we found before when we've talked about this is we're already operating our parks on a skeleton budget. I mean, and so the amount, if we did that, the amount we would have to contribute would not be probably enough for you to actually maintain parks. The incremental cost of that overhead is not very much.
I wouldn't be surprised that you're absolutely right.
I think we're all on the
Shows the
same
public that
Oh, yeah,
you
we're all in
went
the
through
same
effort.
boat.
Yeah.
So you're not saying that the county forest is a park that we would manage? Oh, no.
We do, I mean, we have campgrounds, interesting part of the county, we have fairly large campgrounds that are revenue producers. The problem is they're revenue
Tucker Park
producers.
and Golden.
Yeah, so would those be included or excluded? Most
Exactly,
likely, yeah.
that's a tough hill for us to swallow to get rid of the revenue positive.
What about, Rich, what about for the school district? What is it that, I mean, I'm trying to think of, you guys are important and you're part of this conversation and, you know, there's overlap in, you know, in the recreation that your properties are used for, you know, but you're kind of in a little bit different category from the port, the city and the county as far as, you know, maintenance is, I don't know that that's an issue for you guys. It's not.
What's an issue for us, keeping our facilities, you know, maintained and operating is a battle, you know, everybody wants program funding to go into programs for kids and not into keeping the, you know, parking lots paved, you know, but those are things that we have to balance when we put together our budget. So I think the idea of consolidating is smart. I think that's a really good way to like streamline some services and have a sort of predictable service for constituents who are using those facilities. So they know what to expect at every park they go to. It's going to be maintained and kept up the same way. But I don't know how the school district's sort of implicated in that. You know, I think we have our own challenges with maintaining our fields. We have a lot of use on our fields. You know, we're working with parks to make sure that access to those fields isn't interrupted with the change in the community recreation program.
As a parent too, I would appreciate that there's, you know, when you have a public park versus a publicly accessible school property, there's security concerns there. I don't necessarily want to.
Yeah, we don't,
yeah, yeah. So, what else? What else are we not thinking about? Arthur, you always have a million good ideas. Are you back on the line?
I am back on the line, thank you. So I guess I'm a little bit confused because it seemed like the discussion started by dismissing option A, which was that the voters aren't smart enough to figure out that they have to vote for all three things to get it to happen, and dismissing the concept of a sales tax because the voters couldn't possibly want that. And I'm not sure I'm there. I do like the fact that the discussion has gotten into a scoping discussion, which is one of we have now a multi-jurisdictional park plan. Why aren't we talking about a solution that actually funds that multi-jurisdictional plan? So my personal preference would be that we focus long-term, we focus on that problem and that we make sure we come up with a solution for funding the multi-jurisdictional plan. Short-term, in terms of funding the pool, I like, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it was Mike Oates or Mike Fox, but the concept of going to the public with a bare bones option, I think that's logically where people are mentally right now.
Thank you. Okay. Well, and for the record, Commissioner Babbitts, I think our voters are smart. I just don't think they want to vote for everything. I think that's going to be hard.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that to tell them that this is complicated because of the law, you need to approve all three of those things if you like the idea that we put in front of you, which is a very rich new pool facility with sufficient operating funds to operate it. And if you don't want that, then vote no on all three. I think people can get that. That's marketing.
I agree. That's the one I still want.
Except correct me if I'm wrong, I thought Commissioner Babbitt's part of the reason why we're not going with option A is because the commissioners were concerned about compression.
Option A has a capital bond to pay for the pool. If voters want to vote for a new district that has a greater permanent rate limit, then that's the selection that the voters have done, as long as that permanent rate limit isn't to hide capital bond. That's the difference.
Okay,
And that was our concern. The capital bond is temporary. the
So that would be,
Operating rate is permanent.
it would be reformed at a lower rate than we've been talking, with a bond.
Yeah, the amount they pay is the same, it's just the bond would expire in 25 years or whatever the term is.
It's not the exact plan that you had before. There's an extra piece to it, which is you've added the capital bond to it.
yeah.
Before it was a 2-piece plan, now it's a 3-piece plan.
Right.
And and we would be able to potentially still do this in November, but in order to do that, we would have to come back to the city and present, like we did before, the resolution, and then come back to the county and do the same. So, I mean, if.
Starting in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and like in 2 weeks, so.
I think your attorney said that there wasn't enough time to talk to bond counsel about doing a bond.
That was we were going to try and do it last May. That was, yeah, if we were gonna try and do it in May, there wasn't, but we could still make it the November election if we wanted to. But it would be, like I say, it would be starting, we would have to have our ducks in a row, so have a special meeting probably next week, and then have stuff at the next couple of city and county agendas in order to get.
Yeah, I guess the point is that a capital bond requires an external process, which is getting bond counsel involved and figuring out how you can actually sell a bond. So different process.
Yeah.
So I've got another question, slightly off, but applies here. Down at the port, we've got the recreational area. And the port has been funding that for many years and developing it and whatnot. Our cash cow is going to go away. Most of that, all of that particular funding comes off of tolls off the bridge, the old bridge. The new bridge, by law, we can't use any tolls from that to do anything other than the new bridge, maintaining the new bridge. So the port in the next few years is undergoing a major change and working out. And we're looking at our cost centers down there. Right now, not many of them make much money. We got to figure out how to change that to maintain it. But one that's probably not going to make any money is recreational area. So if our citizens are getting the benefit of that, why shouldn't we add a little bit into this pot to future fund that particular area of the port? Now, whether it stays with the port or it moves to Park and Rec, I think that's wide open, frankly. But I see if we're going to go the electorate, if we go once and try and fix more than one thing.
So if the consolidation discussion were to proceed, and there's a decision to consolidate, is your operating bond levy rate appropriate, or is it something that would need to be?
Oh, it would need to be altered.
So given that people seem to want to have that discussion, does it make sense to go out this fall with that?
That's a question for the board.
But I mean, we would increase the ask, and what they'd be getting for it is that we're gonna manage parks that they're already going to. I don't see that that's hugely attractive to a voter. Really, nothing's gonna change for them unless we say, if you don't do this, here's what's gonna happen to Waterfront Park or whatever. I just don't see that that's a big, carrot, because
So I don't know if you could use it as a carrot, but I think it's a real problem that we're gonna become real here pretty quick.
Well, that's why I think the consolidation part of it, that there's gonna be some efficiencies there that you can market. And there's more people involved, there's people that use down at the port, there's people that use city facilities, there's people that use our facilities.
what
So
can
I
we
think
market
that-
though?
Pardon?
How can we, what is it that we can market?
Besides the fact that they're already using those facilities now. No, I get that, and I think it's a package deal with consolidation and long-term future and good management of these facilities. I mean, I'm not a marketer, but I think there's something there that we can market, that we're combining it all for the long term. And what I think is that you're gonna get users from all those different things that are gonna say, yeah, I like to go down to the port. I like to go wherever, and you gain mass and velocity. So
It's again, back to the message that we have to communicate, that if you don't do this, here's what we might be looking at, and if we do this.
Well, it
then-
will, I mean,
Yeah.
the bridge is going away, the port's not gonna have it, it's a
It's
reality.
gone. We're
It's
working
not-
hard to make sure that.
We're
goes
trying to
quick.
make that bridge happen, so, it's,
So can I jump in at this?
Sure.
So the bridge is going away. The county's funding is getting tighter and tighter. The city's funding is getting tighter and tighter. People want to see ball fields. They want to see additional recreational facilities. I think this is a perfect place to explain to the community that we have prepared a multi-jurisdictional plan which addresses all of the community's issues, interests, both now and into the future for parks and recreation, and that it makes sense to look at them as a single problem and to put them all together, and then to look at a non-property tax solution for that. And that's where I come back to saying that this, to me, seems like something that would be very attractive to go back to the community with a food and beverage tax. I understand the food and beverage tax did not pass for to pay for law enforcement. I think this is a different thing, and I think we have different constituencies, and I think it's well worth. It's a big jump, but none of these is a given. You don't get your GO bond if you ask for it. You don't get a reform district just because you asked for it. The voters have to be inspired, and I think it's something that people could be inspired to do.
I'm very leery about a sales tax, after the county didn't pass it. I know it's for a different thing. My issue with the sales tax is we had people that came from Southern Oregon to fight any sales tax. They had signs, they came in mass to the meetings at the county. We're like, who are you? Like, well, we're from Salem, we're from Ashland, we're from, no sales tax in Oregon. We're like, what in the world? They didn't care what it was for.
So how many people put protect our park signs up in their lawns?
I don't know.
My point is there's a tremendous constituency for parks. It's a different picture entirely. The fact that other communities have been able to pass sales taxes, we're not that different from Ashland. We're not that different from Yachats. We're not that different from Cannon Beach. Yep, we tried it. It didn't work for one purpose. I don't think that means that it can never work. And frankly, we've had levies fail. And again, you don't get a new permanent rate just because you ask for it. These are all hard. They'll all require marketing. There's going to be constituencies against all of them.
So we did the sales tax thing, is it a sales tax through the county or is it through the city? Because the Parks District
Countywide.
doesn't have the authority to do a sales tax. I don't believe that we can impose one or collect one. I think that's beyond the scope of our authority, but I think we would do it, if the county wanted to impose a sales tax and the proceeds from that tax were, went to parks, that, I think that, it would have to be, again, a collaboration.
I think it's a great idea, Arthur. This is Mike McCarthy. I think it's a great idea. I would like to see us though, like have focus groups with some of the opposition from before, particularly local. A lot of the restaurants and so forth were very vocal. And it'd be interesting to get their take in a focus group of half a dozen or so of them. If they would get behind it, it would make a lot more sense.
You would have to, Orla was who organized, that's who brought people from other communities.
Yeah.
So you'd have to get Orla at least neutral, which is a heavy lift. But I spent a lot of time with restaurateurs as we were going through that. And afterward, I had several of them say, sorry. They realized what the issue was. When we passed the second one, they said, we'll help you when you pass this. So I think there's a recognition that there's a need, but you'd have to get Orla to neutral essentially, because that's who's funding the opposition.
I don't know if it matters, but I don't know if I'm stating the obvious here, but things are a little bit different from 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago when that was presented. And one of them being, restaurants have different challenges now. The cost of products and labor is astronomical compared to what it was a few years ago. So I don't know, things are slightly different and getting restaurants on board might be more challenging now too, just because of that.
All the independent analysis says that there's no effect on the profitability of restaurants. It doesn't affect how much people eat out, and it doesn't affect the bottom line on for the restaurants. So I'm not afraid of. I guess I don't agree with Commissioner Perkins on the need to get Orla to agree with us. We went up against the Oregon Petroleum Association to get a gas tax, and we're successful at that. It was hard, but people understood that there's a difference between something that we need, which is plowing the streets in the city, and something that the Petroleum Association doesn't want to do, which is the trouble of collecting a tax that's already collected by the state.
What you often overlook, Arthur, is the emotional response and sales tax.
Oh, no, I'm not overlooking that. I'm recognizing that it's going to be a difficult marketing effort, but the point is that there's a huge constituency for parks. This, if anything, is going to pass a sales tax. It's going to be this. The fact that Yachats was able to pass one for a sewer plant is really impressive to me. To pass one for parks, look at the efforts that Tualatin Valley Parks and Rec has done to get more and more tax monies there. And then you look at the fight that the city had concerning Morrison Park. There's a big constituency here. I think you get it on your side instead of fighting you, and the restaurants will not be able to fight that.
I agree, but I think that takes Orla. So that was very clear the first time we went out, and that is who got the restaurants fired up and in opposition. So
I want to go back to real quickly talking about the consolidation idea and Parks and Rec asking for reforming at a different rate. I think that if we were really serious about this consolidation thing, we have more homework to do. We need to find out exactly what does that look like and how much money would the other entities be willing to contribute to the district's or operation fund, because we need to know how much that is before we go out and ask people for more money. So I don't know, and again, it's kind of stating the obvious, but one of the things I promised Mark I would do is ask, the boots on the ground, the people that actually have to make this happen, so that's Michael on the phone, Mark, Jeff, if you're still with us. What does it take to get that information? And what is it, how long does that take? And is it possible to get that information? And then, do we kind of put together a draft IGA with the different entities or a single, what is the procedure for that?
I can jump in. So I do have some draft numbers. I was on a conference call earlier with Will Norris and Michael McKelwey, and we just kind of were throwing around a couple of numbers. I don't feel comfortable since we were just tossing around sharing them in this meeting right now.
No.
But I think that we can get kind of a rough idea of what that would be, because there is some revenue attached as well. The ports does get revenue from parking now that they do put directly toward parks, and also for selling event site permits, permitted parking, and a couple of other things with the events that they put on there, and permit fees and things. So there is some revenue that offsets, and so we would have to do some calculations there, but it's something that we could come up with. As far as the structure of how we do it with some sort of an IGA, that might take a little bit of time figuring out a lot of things around the ownership and such, and that's probably a lot of more policy decisions that's on the elected side of how that would look if we were to transfer ownership and that sort of thing. The other thing that we would definitely need to look at is how, so I've told you this lots of times, but the Parks District operates right now. We have one maintenance person that works out of a 10 by 14 foot shed. And so if we did that, I know that there's like a lot of fleet and equipment and different things that could also get transferred to us, but we would also need a place to work. So we would either need to figure out how we would fund a, renting a place, or getting space at, one of the yards. I know the port's yard is probably going away as the bridge is built, so that's probably off the table. So there's a lot of other pieces that we would need to kind of figure out the cost of those, to be able to come up with some sort of a rate. It's definitely something that we can do. It's not anything that we could do and go with anything this fall. It would probably be, 6 months fast track, maybe a year worth of doing this stuff. We might look at bringing in the consultants to kind of help walk us through this. So there's to look at it, but it's definitely doable and something that we could look at. I know that we've talked in the past, just kind of danced around the idea of consolidation when we talked about the master plan. The reason the Parks District decided to move forward on our own was because we have a pool next door here that's falling apart, and we just said we need action. We need to move forward. So if these groups, city, port, county, and everyone says we are serious, we really want to look into this, and we're willing to do the work and look into it, I think it's worth.
It seems like it makes sense though initially to assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that we would lease, that one entity would lease all the facilities. I don't think we'd come up with the money. I think it'd be harder to come up with the money to buy some part from the port or some part from the city. Seems like it would be best to use a lease model, but
We would have to, they could transfer the property too without a purchase if it's good for parks. There's lots of different ways to do it. The issue, the reason I keep on bringing up ownership on it is it doesn't necessarily work if you are maintaining somebody else's asset and you don't know who's the one that's investing the capital into it. I've seen this lots of times where a county owns a pool and they have the school district maintain it and put their practice there and such, and then nobody wants to invest in the long-term maintenance of that facility because neither of them are that invested in it. Really, the agency that is maintaining it needs to, I think, have some sort of either a long-term investment in the property, like either a 100-year lease or something, or an actual ownership stake in it. Otherwise, you run into issues with maintaining assets.
Well, I would want to see, and it's part of the study, and maybe you can't do it for the fall, a study that shows if everything else was equal, doing this consolidation saves the taxpayer money. Okay. Now, beyond that, we got to add this and this and this and this to get us back up where we think it was minimal operation to something that everybody's really proud of, another phase of it. But if we can't prove to ourselves that consolidation, as we're doing it today, actually saves money, then we shouldn't be doing it. Right.
another question I'm very curious about, Arthur was talking about the sales tax. I think we should think more about that, but if the county, I would assume the county would be the one that would collect it all. Then how does it go to the Parks District? And that's something that I have no idea how that would work.
I mean, we collect all the taxes now and distribute them to everybody. That's our role.
Yeah, there's ways to do it. It would just be, they would be the ones to put it up, which is very similar to the way we're doing the redistricting, was the county was the one that needed to put, that's why we went to the county in the first place, is you had to put the hearing up to create a new parks district. And then we were dissolving the other district, so it would be the same thing, where they put up the sales tax vote. And then the county commissioners we'd have to probably create some sort of an IGA or something that was a pass through to send the money to us. The pro on the sales tax thing is we would not have to dissolve the parks district. We could keep our 34 cents per thousand, and then this is on top of that, and so our governance structure stays the same. And that saves a huge headache and a lot there. We may even be able to borrow against the money coming in on that, because that wouldn't go against the compression. So back to kind of our original thought of asking the voters for something once. I'm not sure on this, we would need to study it, but it could be that it creates a revenue source that we are allowed to bond against.
And you might be able to take some of the numbers that we used the first time around when the county tried to do the sales tax. You know, what numbers we were using, what would the sales tax be, and what would it generate, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, some of that work
Yeah, we did
a few
a lot.
years ago, there's a whole bunch of work that was done.
Yeah.
You just said what I was thinking, Mark, is if the sales tax could fund the pool bills.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be a smart way to go about it. If you could borrow against it.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing option G or H, I'm not sure where we are now, or M or L,
I think
wherever
we
we are.
just, yeah, we passed you a little bit.
Where are we? Would be, kind of, and it kind of hurts my heart a little bit to say this, but again, district, we pump the brakes a little bit on a ballot measure. Have some time to really talk with all of our organizations about consolidation and how that looks and what the funds would be like for that. And then, Arthur will look into the sales tax. We'll maybe, explore that option a little bit further as well. But I'm gonna be calling you, Arthur.
Well, here's a suggestion. Go to some of your restaurant owning friends and ask them if they would like to pay a significant increase in their property tax, which goes directly to their bottom line, or they like to put a surcharge on each meal paid by their customers.
I also can't help to think that if the waterfront park was part of the deal, I mean, the truth, I love the waterfront park. My husband windsurfs there all summer long, but the truth is the majority of people that are there during the summertime are tourists. And so we have to think about how we can maximize on our tourism industry in this.
I think if you threw in the water park, down there, it may be a little easier sell to the
Right.
restaurants that, yeah, we're now figuring a way of tapping tourists.
Right. I mean, if there was another way, I think what we need to do is tap the tourists. We have a huge tourism industry in the river now, and we don't get much out of it except for a lack of housing.
What's your slogan? Tap the tourists.
All over.
After tourists.
But really, I mean, it's harmed our community in many ways when it comes to housing, and we have not gotten much out of it except for second homes and.
But I think using that the bridge is going away and that, the event site and the Nichols Basin, and those are all being subsidized heavily by the port, and that's going away. So, and we have this big, wonderful master plan that we can't implement. We can't even take care of what we have. And everyone loves the master plan. Oh, now we're gonna get this, now we're gonna have that. It's like, well, we have a plan, but we don't have any money to do it. We don't even have enough money to take care of what we have. And everyone wants it, but the buck stops. And people have to realize that whether it's spending another $1 or $2 when they go out to eat, or a little bit more on their property taxes, that is how it's gonna be, or we aren't gonna have it.
Yeah.
And it needs to be just a serious conversation that people can understand.
And just to remind everybody, the key part of a sales tax is that it brings in money from outside that we otherwise would not be talking about. When we keep on splitting up the property tax pie, we're talking about a limited size pie, and all coming out of the same pockets. I think I'm mixing metaphors there, but I think an attractive argument, especially linking parks to a sales tax is that we have people coming from outside of the community to use these resources. They should help pay for them.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Wasn't the messaging with the emergency services?
I like it.
Yes, Commissioner Oates.
That was the same message.
So when you're saying you're gonna pump the brakes, that's on operating funds, still look at going out on the general obligation bond for the rebuilding the pool, or are you gonna pump your brakes on that too?
I think we need to talk about what, I mean, what, I think our board will probably need to come back and, think about that, but I don't know if it makes sense for us to, I don't know, what, I personally don't like the idea of, going to the constituency multiple times with multiple asks. And while I know the pool is a priority, I think that, in my mind, what I meant by pumping the brakes was, holding off and really having our arms around, what it is we're asking for. So and I don't want to speak for all of my fellow board, but I think that means not going for the bond at this time, personally.
Just my opinion, I think if you went out for a general bond to replace the pool this fall, you could pass it. Everything else is good luck.
I couldn't hear what that comment was.
Are you Arthur?
Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Mike.
You can't hear me?
No, I hear you.
Okay. I said if we went out or if the parks went out for a general obligation bond, just for the swimming pool this fall, there's a good chance that they could pass it. If they went out for anything else, I think they'd have a real problem. And a lot of that has to do with the times of today.
I just think that the consolidation is gonna take time, as Mark said. And I think that a sales tax is gonna take a lot of work ahead of time with, focus groups and restaurateurs and Orla and, polling. And I think you might be able to get it passed. I'm not feeling super positive about getting it passed. But I'm help with it. I can get behind helping to do that. But I think there's just a lot of work that needs to be done ahead of time on that you just can't rush that.
And we clearly didn't do enough outreach to the restaurateurs when we put ours out. I mean, we should have done a lot more front end work that came back to us repeatedly. So engaging early would be important.
So that's
So
another,
if you went out for this bond for just the pool and you make it a basic pool, what's your timeline for building the pool? Do you have a feel?
So if we pass the bonds, once we sold the bond and got the money, we would probably have a year of design and a year of building the pool, so
Okay, I was
a
figuring.
couple years.
Okay, so that's almost 3 years out, 2.5 years from now.
Yeah.
That gives you a little bit more time to really think through and package a consolidation and a public communication plan to go after that with one of your other options to fund it.
I'm trying to think about if we have the resources to, back to the question, do we have the resources to operate a new pool? Because the sale of we need more, consolidation and, possibly a sales tax would be a little easier if we could say, look, we built you a shiny new pool, look what we've done so far. We're making progress on our master plan. Would you support this? I think it would be a little bit easier sale down the road, but at the same time, would we be in a position to be able to afford to operate a new pool if we passed a bond to build one?
Well, you're not gonna have to operate it for another 2.5 years. Right. And I would also offer up, whatever you're maintaining today is gonna probably be a lot less on a brand new pool.
I don't think you
Uh,
gain
it
that
depends.
much, because a lot of it's in the personnel.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say lifeguards, Marcy's the expert over there, but lifeguards and
Yeah,
et cetera, and training lifeguards and,
but you're not adding that whole activity center and have to staff that.
yeah.
So
I think it's
it'd
way,
be a whole bunch more than what you're operating now.
yeah,
If we replace the pool exactly what it is, then you're right. But if we did add to it and to change the facility, then there's more money. That's what.
So don't add to it, make it where it's addable.
I think the only other issue with that though is that we did do a lot of surveys on what kind of pool they want, and the voters told us they wanted something bigger and better than what we have now.
But that's
So
where you gotta
that's
go back
again
to the public and say.
ignoring
"You're
what they
taking no
said."
laundry," you know, we're facing the same thing on the bridge. You know, that there's people that would love to have a cable stayed, indirect lighted, blah, 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 blah. We don't have any money.
Voters will always tell you they want.
Until they
Lots of
have
things
to
until they
pay
have to pay
for
for
it,
it.
yeah.
And it's- Yeah,
Then if you say, well, it's gonna be this much more for a toll to go across it, oh, well, I guess we don't really need that.
One other thought about, just about the pool, while we have you all here, and we only have 9 more minutes of your time, so it's kind of crazy to throw this out, but all the studies that we did were keeping the pool in the location that it's at, because that's the property that we own. It was the most economical for our organization. If we're talking about all of this, does it make sense to keep the pool in the location that it's at? Because, you know, that would be a great location for the new city police department. We've got the maintenance yard across the way. Does it make sense to have a community center in the valley that's more accessible to our community as a whole, as opposed to like down in town? These are all things that, again, we should discuss as a group, because I think it impacts all of us. And I would be curious to hear what your thoughts are. I had the opportunity a little bit to talk to Mayor McBride about this, but it would be interesting to, you know, again, while we're thinking about this, we looked at it 5 years ago and that made the most sense. But what makes sense today? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, the conundrum that we have in looking at our facilities and our needs, and does it make sense for us to have public works and forestry in the middle of the river? No. It would make a lot more sense for that to be somewhere else and for that to be used for something different.
Like a pool.
Like a pool.
Yeah.
It's how do you get all that coordination to occur? It's super complicated, but well worth discussing.
We maybe need to have, like, getting the band back together is a good idea. I mean, maybe there's other issues that we could all be talking about while we're together, and maybe that's one of them, because the port's got property up valley too, that, you know, that they're maybe, you know, I don't know what they're doing with, and we should be thinking about this stuff.
The land that I know, I wouldn't put a pool up in Norvell.
No, we don't want to go that far, I don't think. Yeah.
Well,
I live up there and I don't want to go that far.
well,
I
I
think
think,
Whoever's talking, I can't hear you.
this is Kate. I said, I think the swimming pool should be at the high school. I remember the fight when we built Hood River Valley High School. And the Hood River and Y-East, the parents were about ready to kill each other to consolidate, to have one high school. It was just a battle for, I don't know, 10 years, maybe for longer. But I feel like there was a lot of people that lived out in the valley that their complaint was they had to drive all the way to town. And so the compromise was this high school that was part way. And they still thought that was too far, but I keep thinking that maybe we'd get more votes from county if we had the swimming pool further out. Like at the high school, it seems like a logical place to me.
High school's a good sort of central spot. There's just not a lot of space. in that. Like, we're very landlocked there with our capacity to expand that. But
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I know.
If
I
there-
agree that location is perfect, also because I think the community trusts the school. And because, you know, the pool is not in a separate place, it's in a place, it was close to the high school where they trust.
What about West Side Storage? It's pretty well tied up.
What's that?
West Side Storage,
Is that storage?
it has a new name now. Who owns it? Double Mountain or something?
The Dunhill cold storage?
Yeah, we don't own that. It's just south of the baseball field.
No, I know you don't own it, but I mean,
I believe Double Mountain owns it.
Yeah.
maybe they would.
Ask them before the restaurant, the sales tax.
No, I mean, the reason I suggest it partly is the trust of the schools and centrally located, more votes from county versus it's just in the city again.
Not
So
too
that-
far
that-
from the airport, Commissioner Fox.
Hey, I'll
Nice
sell you
amenity.
the airport today.
I'm sorry, isn't there a basic question of of whether the Parks District wants to move forward with something quickly? Or has that just been dropped from discussion? If that's still up for discussion, what I heard was an opposition to, there were two possibilities on the table. One was Chair Oates's comment that you go for a simple capital bond on something that's small and that you can operate with current operating resources. The second possibility is if you believe that that is not doing what the polls told you your constituents want, then you should have faith in option A, which says go for everything. Tell them this is what you asked for, vote for it. When they vote for it, you're done. I don't think it's going to pass, but you can do that.
Well, that's our concern, Arthur. We're not real confident it would pass that way.
But I thought I just heard that we have to do this because this is what the voters told us they want.
That was a bigger facility, but not necessarily that type of a plan to get it in place. That
Right,
type-
people want a bigger facility as long as they don't have to pay for it.
Right, you got it.
I got it, okay.
Well, we got 4 minutes left. Again, thank you guys so much. It is really great to get your input and your feedback, and you've given us some really good information and some steps. I mean, I think our last slide was next steps. And I think we should probably, our board will talk and then probably reach out to each of your organizations and talk a little bit more about this consolidation. Maybe start talking about focus groups for a sales tax. And I think it's kind of funny. This is what I wasn't hoping for was, continued conversations. I was hoping we'd have, I'm the eternal optimist. I was hoping we'd have a plan leaving tonight, but I think our plan is we have a little bit more legwork to do. I don't know, but this is invaluable. Really having all of your input is really great. Did my fellow board members want to add to that? Or
I just
say
wanted
anything?
to add to Mary McBride there that a little bit of history going farther back. You should have heard how bad it was when they made Parkdale High School close.
Oh. I bet that was.
So that was many years before that.
Rich, what were you guys thinking?
Try going over to Cascade Lodge.
Every time there's a change.
Man, Suzanne, anything? Mark, you have anything else?
Just how happy I am to see all these people coming out during this busy time when we've got budget committees and all these extra meetings to talk parks, my favorite subject. So thank you so much.
Well, I would just say, like, we're all in the same boat. I mean, we're all dealing with slim budgets, needing to pass measures that are difficult. So love to see you succeed and help you figure out what that path looks like.
Great, thank you. Thanks all of you on the phone too, and zooming in. Appreciate your time tonight. You guys.
I guess we need to get cool in here because the Dalles, Wasco County is about to hit